Hello and welcome to this episode of the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. On this episode, I host a panel of distinguished citizens of this country. I won't call them intelligent. I will call them exquisite personnel for the progress of the country, Uganda, and you can't wait to hear from what they have to share with us on a topic many of you have interested yourselves in: the Uganda Law Society, the agreement, the disagreement, expulsions, suspensions, and everything to do with that. We can't wait to hear from what the young people here have to talk about that, but also make sense of what it means for the country and by extension the world in terms of leadership, but also how quick or slow people take decisions at the leadership level and what they mean for the people they lead and the citizenry. Now, before we get into the depth of that conversation, I will invite these people to briefly talk to you and most importantly, tell you where they've come from and what it means for them to say what they say about this topic, and later we discuss what it is and what we got. I should start from my immediate left. Gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. My name is Musoke Gilbert. I'm a second-year law student from Makerere University. I'm currently serving as the Vice President of the Hope Initiative Club, Makerere chapter, and equally serving as the incoming chairperson of Rule of Law Club, Makerere University, former director of Legal Tech Club, Makerere University, and many more clubs which I won't mention, but in this regard, I'm so passionate with the item that we are going to be discussing today, which deals with the concepts of rule of law and constitutionalism in regards to the various developments in the Uganda Law Society. Yeah, with all that said, I would like to pick up.
Thank you so much, Gilbert Musoke, for joining us, and you had just a snippet of what he is and what he does, and that interests us in getting to know his views about the topic at hand, but also what it means for him and for the future. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to pick from you. Gentleman next to Gilbert.
Well, thank you so much, Philip. Humbly, I'm Aruho, finalist in law school, Cavendish University, Uganda. I think I must say that, one, I'm very humbled to have graduated from the inter-university debates partially to the youth roundtable, and making me share space with very brilliant people is it's a take. I mean, Mr. Roy Rugumayo, I mean the man before me who had a very big CV. I'm learning the process. Then next to the one and only Madam Nkalubo. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. He's too shy with sharing what he has achieved over the very many years he's been in these spaces, but I know you know him, and certainly we'll have to share more about him, and we can't wait to pick from you. Which part of the country do you come from?
I come from Uganda.
Which part of Uganda?
Roy, where did you come from?
I come from Fort Portal.
I come from Tungam.
Very good. And Gilbert?
Me, I come from Barara.
Mbarara, Ntungamo. Thank you so much. Lady.
All right. My name is Oprah Nkalubo. Where do I come from? I come from Kibale in the west. I'm a second-year law student at Makerere University. I'm the vice president of the Children's Reference Group and the UNICEF and Ministry of Gender. Very passionate about leadership, policy making, policy advocacy, and with the topic that we have here today, I can't wait to get into the nitty-gritties of what leadership means, especially one at the Uganda Law Society.
Thank you so much. Like I said, you hear what they do and what they're passionate about, and it's something that should inspire you to listen to them more, but also follow them more even when they are not in this space, because there is a lot to look out for now and for the future. Thank you so much, Oprah, for joining us. Chibale, Ntungamo, and Mbarara. Lastly, I'm tempted to introduce him, but I think for the benefit of equality, let me. Gentlemen, karibu.
Thank you so much, Philip. I'm glad to be here. My name is Roy Rugumayo. I'm a member and the team leader of the New Bold Vision. Also a candidate in the Hapa Kazi 2 campaign. In this conversation, I come as a citizen of Uganda who matters rule of law affects in one way or the other. I'm also very keenly interested in how our land friends run things, especially in governance. Given that I'm the only panelist who does not have a background of law, perhaps my perspectives will be from the streets.
Maybe you should tell the audience that you've interacted with law, but on the other side of it, not as an implementer.
I've interacted with the law from the side of the law chasing. Now, on the panel, I'm the perspective of the street, of us who look at the lawyers and in awe, in amazement.
Thank you so much, Roy Rugumayo, for joining us, and indeed equally shy in sharing a lot of what he's engaged in and what he has achieved over the years. But certainly many of you will know about him from the Uganda National Students Association, but also the East African Students Association and many other platforms that he has quite influenced, and hopefully he shares the bits of experience he picked from that particular circle, the many circles he's been a part of. Now, colleagues, the Uganda Law Society, starting this year, has been very active. We have heard from it much more than we've heard from probably the previous 10 law societies, and how they worked around their affairs and what they meant for the country. Let me start there, and I'll start from the citizen. Why is it such so that the Uganda Law Society today is a household conversation item, unlike the previous law societies?
Well, in my honest opinion, I think that comes from the background of its current leadership that has deep roots within society that is not necessarily law society. We have a president of the law society who has been the face and shield of defense of rule of law from the student movements, from the trade unionists, from the academicians in Makerere University and other academic staff and non-academic staff in universities, fighting against oppression, fighting for labor, for their labor to be honored and paid for in full, fighting for people who are looked at as the periphery of society, like the Desire Luzindas, fighting for their dignity, people like Dr. Stella Nyanzi's, people like this lady of the herbalists, Mama Fina. So we have someone who is the president of the Law Society, who is associated with all these factions and faces of the general public. So his presence, first in the election to be president of the ULS, attracted so much interest from all spheres of society, lawyers and non-lawyers alike. For the first time in a very long time, the election was run on open media with the input of everyone. The campaign was run in student auditoriums, at Makerere Law School, at Victoria Law, in courts of law, in wherever the voter was and wherever the citizen who is interested in the law and those who are not interested in the law were. That's where the campaign picked traction from. And the lawyer in this case came in as a confirmation of the voices that these various aspects of society represented. So when he wins, and first he campaigns on the platform of banging the table, of unraveling the norm, of suspending senior councils, of like, that was his platform. If you elect me, I will get rid of the Attorney General from
Law Society.
From Law Society as the head of the bar, because the head of the bar must be voted for by the bar. And when he comes into office, he does it as item 1. Is it Executive Order 1? Right? So he campaigned in poetry and is governing in poetry. He gave them radical rudeness in the campaign and is giving them radical rudeness in governance. So I think it's been long for people to see someone actually keep their promises while campaigning and implement them while in office. So all these come as a shock to very many people. Also the style, the flowery language is very new to the kind of conservative society that we are in. We have a law society president. Remember, lawyers are looked at as, you know, even to themselves. They think this is an exclusive society of people who act a certain way, who speak a certain way. Now they have a president who says words that are scary even to themselves. Okay? And those words are hugely protected speech, a hugely acceptable speech in the plurality of views that the concept of democracy represents. So many don't even know how to deal with him, to deal with the phenomena that Semakade is, that the new law society is.
Thank you so much, Rugumayo. A person that dealt with every kind of person, from musicians to traditional healers,
To people who
to
undress.
market people, and everyone. Brian, I want to come to you, and I want you to speak about the election. Like he said, lawyers are looked at, and indeed they look at themselves. You look at yourselves as exclusively intelligent and a special kind of people in society. When you look at that election, the traction it had, and having a one Isaac Semakade garner more than 2,000 very intelligent people to stand behind him, what was this uniqueness that attracted all these people to a Semakade that seemed contrary to the ideal lawyer we know?
Thank you. I think it would be very unfair to start it from the campaign of Isaac Semakade, a senior council president. It stems back to what I would call at least the two law societies two law society leaderships that we've been able to see. One, that is the previous of senior counsel Bernard Owundo, and then one before that of senior counsel Fiona Wall. This is practically the first time you've had young lawyers coming up, stemming, and saying, I think let's move behind a person. Not because of the talk that society was giving, oh, he has dreadlocks, he has this, he's a misfit, because all those words came in. But you take this discussion of how does this person dress? To what are they? I mean, Roy earlier on said the lawyers have a certain way they were speaking, pushing themselves, which is more or less the colonial system that was put in. Now you have someone coming in and say, guys, look, I think we need to do, and just to take it to the very last day of voting, if you saw the way President Isaac Semakade came, he came dressed, not in a suit. He came as a street guy with his broom. A broom practically means that, guys, look, I think we are going to sweep. Yeah, we are going to sweep all this dirt, but my dirt is on mainly 4 things. that if you can understand that we need a decolonization, then you're fit to be on our team. Now that takes you to what we were saying. These guys have a certain way they were speaking, and for I think a long period of time, young lawyers had been locked out. The stories you are having on X of young lawyers are not being paid, you know, they are taking water for lunch, they are yawning for transport. Those were things that were very true. So you have someone saying, guys, I'm going to fight for you. Yeah. And that takes you off and is telling you guys, I think this isn't about putting on suits, speaking expensive English, driving Benzes. We need to get back to the reality check. Let's have a decolonization agenda. You have someone telling you guys, I think it's high time we needed Uganda Law Society to make a stand on demilitarization, which hadn't been made in the regime of Senior Counsel Fiona Wall. Partially, I think it was 0.2% handled by the cabinet of Senior Counsel Bernard Owundo. But then you find President Isaac Semakade saying, guys, no, Bernard Owundo's, Senior Counsel Bernard Owundo's tenure did not do as per the mandate it had on at least pushing for this agenda of demilitarization. Because you have people that would want to participate in maybe the governance space of Uganda, the civic space of Uganda, but they fear the whole aspect of, I'll say something, and it will trigger maybe military police to come and pick me. Maybe it will trigger UPDF to come and pick me. We've had recently the scuffle that was at Parliament when these 2 honorable members of Parliament fought for a seat, but then the clips we saw later on is that when the electricity went off, it's claimed that guys from SFC came and picked up people, inclusive of the honorable member of Parliament, Honorable Shamim Nabasa.
Malende, rather. Yes.
Then you have him telling you, I think it's high time we move to the digital age, digitalization agenda. That I think for any law student who followed the impeachment case in Kenya, I think it's a time we felt that, yeah, I think the law is sweet. Because you are following it then digitally. You didn't have to go down and first read, oh, this is what they say, this is what the High Court says. No, we're following live proceedings. And I think the live proceedings in Uganda we've had are very few, inclusive of the Coelho case, inclusive of the Katanga case. And those, we must be at the stage of saying we've had A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You get? Someone telling you that we cannot brag, oh, we are lawyers, oh, we are up to standard, because in school we are teaching things like computers and the law. But in practice, we are very far away from reality. So that agenda alone brings the young lawyers on board and saying, guys, I think this guy understands what we want. But then also the democratization. You have people like Roy who are interested in democracy. Because you see, again, as you say, this campaign was not just about the lawyers. It was way, way, way beyond that. Because you had people calling him, the people's president. And because he touched very fundamental aspects, that democracy affects you whether you want to vote for NRM or NUP or FDC, or even if you say, me, I'm not interested in politics. The next time when your milk pours on a bad road, then we pray that you don't come out and say, you know. So I think to sum it up, the whole campaign, the whole competition between him and Mr. Tukunda was a big shake-up, especially for, I think, advocates, senior counsel, and then also the young lawyers that are just coming through, inclusive of those at LDC that are doing their clerkship, inclusive of law students who are doing internship, inclusive of any other person who is interested in good governance, rule of law, and just the basic principles of promotion of constitutionalism. Rule of law, not rule by law.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that. And Oprah, I want to pick from there. You see, what he says and what he said earlier is Semakade came with a broom. He intends to sweep a lot of things, and he says, I'll bang the table. Whichever way I will do it. And it takes me to something you lawyers call decorum. How deep is this decorum entrenched in the activity of lawyers, and indeed, what should it mean for a lawyer whose rights are violated, who is not getting what they're supposed to get? Do they continue with the decorum, or they have a right to bang the table like Semakade told them?
All right. Thank you so much for the question, Phil. The issues that are in the law society or even in the legal profession are issues that even stem back to what Uganda is and looks like today. So when we look at the issues in the Law Society, we are looking at lawyers who are not being given worth their labor. We are looking at systems where what you learn in school and what you have in practice is totally different, where you have your lecturers coming and they tell you in class that I cannot give you above 500,000, and yet they are the ones who teach you and they expect you to be better. And even deeper rooted problems, we have issues with rule of law, and this goes beyond with the lawyers, because as the lawyers we do represent people in courts, but then how about these people who will stay for months in remand without any trial, people who are just kidnapped like that, where you have the law, the executive, the judiciary, and you can't even separate them anymore, and it's a whole quagmire of chaos. So those are the issues that we are dealing with in the state of Uganda, and they are not just legal issues, they are issues that concern every single citizen. Because as lawyers, we are there to simply help, to counsel, to advocate. But then there are people who then suffer these consequences. So where you're having an issue whereby you, the lawyer, you're suffering, the people around you are suffering, and for a long time we have had diplomatic ventures, board meetings, you sit in a room, have water, tea, discuss from morning to evening, and yet when it comes down to what can be done, when it comes down to the real solutions, there are no solutions. Rather, we have more people being kidnapped. We have more people. Who are facing, who are in remand, and their cases have never even been listened to. You find cases running for a long period of time, and the justice has never been served. And all these are issues that we have.
So, Oprah, if you allow me, what I pick from your submission now is that actually it is the right time for us to bang the table. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Because right now we need a shake-up, because this is a system that we have had. As Aruho earlier mentioned, we have seen it. We have seen diplomacy, we have seen decorum, we have seen suits, we have seen all these things, but it just keeps getting worse. Every year we keep seeing new cases of violence, new cases of case backlog. All of these things have not been solved. The legal career, if you see, getting into law school is difficult, joining LDC is difficult, even leaving LDC is difficult, even joining a law firm and getting paid is difficult. So if that is the future that we are having for our country, then we need a shake-up, and I believe Semakade brings a good shake-up that we need as a country.
Thank you so much, Oprah. Getting into law school is difficult, getting into LDC is difficult, and leaving LDC is more difficult. However, even getting into a law firm and you get paid is actually difficult. Gilbert Musoke, I want you to take me to the Uganda Law Society. For the last couple of months, we've heard so much from the Law Society than we've had in over 10 years. What is happening at the Law Society?
Well, thank you, Philip, for that question. I will just add from the brief background of what our learned friends have already said. Uganda Law Society is a corporate body instituted to bridge the gap between all practicing lawyers and other members that work in the judiciary. So it's like the force of the young lawyers and senior counsels and everyone in the practice that fronts their aspirations and ambitions. So in this recent 2 months, we've had quite a lot of activities that have happened. We had the election, which was also quite controversial to some people due to the new modus operandi that was used to carry out the activities that we saw, the various visits in campus. Unlike the previous times where people would just go to Sheraton and campaign from there, now we're having people engaging in grassroots politics and trying to connect with the people. Now, after the elections, we have the new president, and that is Mr. Isaac Semakade, coming up with various projects that he had promised. He started with the expulsion of the Attorney General and Solicitor General, of which those particular offices are instituted by the Uganda Law Society Act. But he was like, these are all colonial elements that were put in place and carried from the colonial system, and they are not competent in our jurisdiction. So he bases from the Sempewa 2012 report, or because Sempewa was the president of Uganda Law Society, and before he left, he had told these people that the offices of Attorney General and Solicitor General are not useful because it also undermines the concept of like division of power. So there is no way we are still going to embrace these particular things which we embraced before. And yeah, that's what led to the executive order, though I still question the validity of that particular executive order, because his office is not mandated to just issue executive orders per se. And then we also have what some people call controversial tactic that he used against the land justice Francis Abodo in regards to the various developments in the criminal justice system, where they tend to see that the Directorate of Prosecutions not doing its job well, because we have so many people spending a lot of time without even being brought before court, and all that is what is causing him to bang the table, as they call it. But I believe that banging the table this time around simply means that they are tired of how things have been conducted, and they want to see things work in the way they're supposed to do. And that's all that has been happening.
Thank you for that. And you see, in this getting tired, I don't know, the lawyers are tired from what Oprah told us. Even other citizens are actually tired because there is a general problem across the country. Tell me, when you make an assessment of this way of doing things, the banging the table by Council Semakade, and it's good you mentioned that you doubt the validity of the order, but let's leave the validity and what? This way of doing things, is it known to the law profession? Is it acceptable in the law profession? Is it something that should move the law profession to the next level?
Well, as I'd already said, we have particular rules and regulations that govern the conduct of advocates. These were put in place to protect the integrity of the profession, and we don't have like the legal profession being taken as any other profession. And
put in place by who?
These particular regulations were put in place by the people in practice, by
Uganda Law
and
Society.
they all stem from how activities have been conducted before. And since all this stems back from the 1902 order in council, which brought in common law, equity law. We carried all their laws and principles to our jurisdictions, and that's why we are having some things that people have now come to say that actually no, this one does not work in our context. So I believe that the regulations are there to protect the integrity of the profession, but where things are not working out well, then people are forced to take extreme measures to address those particular issues, because we've seen also President Museveni take extreme measures, address some issues where the justice system doesn't work. So I feel like the rules and regulations are valid, but what should be done is to focus on what you're supposed to be doing, and do not engage in like corrupt or incompetent acts that will undermine the office you hold, because you're just a representative of the office and you're not under personal capacity when you're holding that particular office, which is why we have these regulations governing those particular offices.
Thank you so much. The regulations to manage the integrity of the law profession, and so certainly he talks about something he calls the 1902 Order in Council, that from which most of these stem and so on. Brian, talk to me about this integrity, because look, we talk about on one end what you call unoppressed members of the profession, the young lawyers who Oprah said are not paid. They struggle through LDC, they struggle through law school, they read a lot of things, they do a lot of research, and they are not paid. Maybe she said they are having a water bottle for lunch and so many things. And on the other end, we have to protect this he calls integrity, which how do we get the two worked out well, not putting down the integrity but also making sure there is equity and justice for the people in the profession?
Well, I want to think that is very simple. If when Roy started this submission, he said this whole thing went down even to the common person. So whether you're into the herbal regime that is headed currently by de facto president Mama Fina, whether you're into the music industry, you know the beauty with the law.
Even the miracle ones. We are
Yes,
interested.
you see. So whether you're into the legal profession or not, the law is the law,
Yeah.
and it will bite you. If you want to know that the law can bite you, you wait. We are going in for elections just next year. It's not very far away. You will see. Whether you support NRM or not, whether you support President Semakade or not, the law will bite you. She talked about. She made a very the submissions we've taken time without hearing. She said that entering law school is difficult. Getting out alone is difficult. Entering LDC has become a disease. Coming out, it's like you've won a war. But then you don't know that actually what you're going in, you've just tested a drop in the ocean. Entering a law firm is troublesome. Then after securing, fighting and everything, putting on suits, speaking good English, now you're going to fight for money. To be paid. You get? And so when he says, let's protect the integrity, it gets me thinking, which integrity are we looking at? The integrity of oppressing someone to the wall so that we can keep the whole cloud of senior counsel? You understand? That's why when you see people like, there's a gentleman we haven't talked about, Counsel Tumukunde Tony, coming out and saying, guys, I think as young lawyers, we need to reshape. I think it's high time we sat down and then we thought about this whole integrity thing. Because again, it comes down to what Senior Counsel President Isaac Semakade said. Let's look at decolonization. Because all this, again, as he has said, comes from the 1902 Order in Council. But then to what extent should we continue following it? You have the 2012... Yeah?
Where did that council sit? I don't know.
You have Professor Sempewa, Senior Counsel, President Emeritus, coming up and making a recommendation in his 2012 report, which again, President Semakade has hinted on that, guys, I think it's high time we looked back at this. Let's take off offices of the Attorney General and Solicitor General. He's not doing it in bad faith. He's not saying, I'm against these people. No. I would think that he's saying, guys, we need to have another look into this. Because if we want separation of powers, if we want to work effectively well as the Uganda Law Society, certain elements need to first be taken off. So that we look at this. But the moment you keep that in, the whole integrity question is going to be pushed. You see, the problem is that the thing with integrity is, if you push these people who are currently in law school, they will think it's the new normal. So when they reach there, it's the same thing they're going to push. So the whole integrity thing, putting on suits, it amounts to nothing when you have no bare respect for each other. You get? So this whole integrity question, yes, we'd love to have the integrity. And President Semakad, as I said, before he came in, people said he's a Rasta. He's this, he's this, he's that. But the communications he has made in these 2 months, the rate of inclusivity with the general population within these 2 months with the Uganda Law Society has not been seen since at least...
Brian, how tough is it to be a young lawyer out there?
It's tough. As the way you see the word tough, just bold it a little bit. It's tough. It's tough because you're seeing these guys. I don't know. Last year at least we had an exhibition. We tried to have an exhibition, though it was oppressed. We tried to have an exhibition on X. Then it was Twitter, about the pleas of young lawyers. I don't know if you followed. We had testimonies from young lawyers telling you guys, it is serious. Reason was, she said they've passed through all this, which is immaterial. You would say, anyone would say, no, but you went to university to study, this is the career you're supposed to read, which is fine. I don't think they have an argument on that. But the real world is tough. Now, you're having someone passing through all this, kids commit suicide in law school, before even going to LDC. At least we've had Makerere University have those cases. As Cavendish, we've not had that. But that doesn't mean that kids are not suffering from depression, low-key. Now, you have these people come through, the girls. We had ladies in the legal profession saying some of them have been reduced to sex to get their salary. That the guy, senior counsel will call you and tell you, Omsarabo, Google. But you know how the Ugandan business is. Let's jira to jira, then in Kuwe. But your money is there, you're seeing it. So will you walk out? No. So the lady was saying, look, I think some of us ladies have been used to get our salaries. But then that also cuts across to the male gender. Some of them telling you guys, we are working in law firms headed by senior counsel females who are also using us in return for money. But then now those are the few who are getting the money. Now others are telling you guys, we pack our food from wherever and come and eat it in Kubanga. These guys are saying, there is the whole thing of we are giving you experience. We are giving you a location, we are giving you an identity. So as Aruho brand, my identity is Aruho & Co advocates. I have a table with a laptop and then they're paying me with Wi-Fi. You get? Wi-Fi does not amount to money. So you're having this guy saying, guys, we do not eat lunch. You're seeing us in suits, but the reality is we are nothing.
Wow, that's tough. Oprah, look, you see, there is that facet of a sort of conflict between not necessarily senior counsels, but people with much more experience in the law profession and the entrants, the people that have just left LDC, people that have practiced for 1, 2, 3 years. And you said, some of these are your lecturers at the university. You did mention they tell you they will not pay you beyond a certain value. And how do we harmonize this relationship between the seniors and the people that are just coming to the profession, because we need continuity?
Thank you. There was a particular document that was moving around social media, and it was talking about how presidents of the Uganda Law Society hold in trust the society for the lawyers that will come after and for the generations thereafter. Because of the terminology of that document, that the president holds in trust the society for the young people. I believe even our senior counsels, our professors, are supposed to hold in trust this profession for us. So where you have a situation where your lecturer or your professor is demoralizing you even before you get there, then I believe that there is no decorum in that. It is rather killing the profession even before it starts. And some of these things, why I question it is because of the person it is coming from. We all know, and it's no secret in Uganda, every profession is difficult, right? When you get into medical school, engineering, a social field, wherever, the start is always not easy. But where you get it from, where you're told, as Aruho has mentioned, that it comes from a place of I'm giving you experience. I am teaching you. I am giving you a label and a name to yourself, but yet you're the same person who has taught me for 4 years. So what were you teaching me in 4 years? Were you, I believe what you were teaching me then is what is supposed to give me the experience. If you were teaching me legal methods, you're supposed to have taught me how to draft simple pleadings, how to draft affidavits, how to draft those things. So that when I come into practice, I am able to draft them and they're not teaching me anything. But where you have an education system that is rooted with colonization and the things that are in practice are not what we are being taught, then you have challenges there. Because you're following a system that is very detached from what happens in practice. You have a lawyer going 4 years in law school, and then they come out and then they cannot do anything in the workspace. Not because they're incompetent, not because they don't know what to do, but because the system that they've gone through and what they have been taught has not catered for that. It is just a few smart people or proactive people who look beyond the syllabus. The teacher has given you the topic, has explained it, you have looked for notes, etc. But it's just a few extra students that go outside the box and think about, okay, how do I draft these papers? How do I become a better writer? How do I become a better advocate? What do I need to do? It's few students that add value to themselves, but the system in and itself does not add value to the student. So when they come into the workspace, then those are some of the narratives that come within. But I feel like it's not even an issue of decorum or an issue of what professors and senior counsels have said about this issue. That is not the issue. The issue is there is a need to create change. The thing of Uganda right now and for the Law Society is people want change, and they will do radical things to get change. That is why you're seeing what you see. But it is just because people want a change in the education system. They want a change in rule of law. They want a change in the corrupt tendencies in the office of the Attorney General, in the office of the DPP. It stems to much deeper issues. All we see is just surface noise, but there are deeper foundations that we have to work with if we are to get solutions to the problems that we see today.
Thank you so much. Much deeper problems, and I think you got to me where I wanted to take Roy. Look, what is the issue with professionalism in this country? When you look at the lawyers, they are almost protesting. I saw someone the other day via X saying he's going to lead a protest on the streets of Kampala for the reclaiming of the law profession and independence and something like that. We had doctors protesting, we had intern doctors protesting, nurses protesting, we had teachers protesting, lecturers protesting. These are professions. Engineers are saying they're not paid the way they're supposed to be paid. When you go to any other profession, people are telling you we are not treated the way we're supposed to be treated. What is the issue with professionalism in this country?
Well, it's deeper than professionalism. I think the challenge is that for all the years we have been an independent country, we have either deliberately refused to decolonize and Africanize the situation to our context. And the situation being our education system, our professionalism, our everything to fit the context that we are. Take for instance, someone will quote what's wrong with Semakade and his executive orders and quote a 1902 document and quote a 1950 document done by a colonial government with the intent of curtailing the energies and the innovation of a growing legal society. Now, the legal society as it is now is a residue of a colonial legal society that was particularly built to maintain a colonial system with words like decorum. As lawyers, you're not supposed to act this way. With words like dignity, you're supposed to act in this way for you to be considered a proper lawyer. those were wordings, those were concepts, particularly built to maintain a colonial system, and now maintained particularly to keep in place a neo-colonial, neoliberal system. And that cuts across every other sector that you want to call a profession. The kind of lecturer that was built was to form students, secretaries for the colonialists, okay? And to form people that are subservient. So the conversation was deeply between Professor Ali Mazrui and Professor Mohammed Bamdan. What kind of African university, what kind of graduate, what kind of professional must an independent and self-governing Africa produce? What kind of education system do we need to produce the kind of profession that Africa needs? And one was, Professor Mazrui argues that universities must produce a graduate that is so deeply entrenched in their society and in the issues affecting their society. Take, for instance, if I come from Bugisu, the kind of education I must get and the kind of education the university must create into me must be one that understands Bugisu and its advantages, let's say, coffee.
Roy,
right?
look, you see, what you mention is very important, and I like, but look, you see, the people we consider very qualified in this country, the people we consider competent with the skill in this country, are people that have sought their training from Oxford, from Cambridge, from Columbia, from MIT, and the people occupying the decision-making offices.
The problem with that is that now you produce a person whose context is off what we have, is off the context that the Ugandan society is. No wonder we have professors of entrepreneurship who have never opened a kiosk, who don't know how a kiosk is run, and therefore will be asking for salary increment because what they receive as salary is insufficient. But they are teaching entrepreneurship. You find a system that is producing teachers of agriculture who will teach soil erosion in school. How do you control soil erosion? These are methods of controlling soil erosion, and there is soil erosion happening on the school compound. They jump over a gully from the classroom to go to the staff room. And now, that is the kind of professional you're calling us to magnify, to come to the conversation of what is the plight of professionals. What kind of professionals? Because let's take a look at engineering, or even machine making. Take for instance, you have people there at SEDAT studying architecture. But when the contract of constructing the wall around Makerere University was given to SEDAT, it fell before it was completed. You remember? SEDAT, the first wall around Makerere University, it was under them. It fell before it was completed. And that's the professional you're calling us to magnify. I think what we need is to look at the substance with which Council Semakade is calling us to these difficult conversations.
Maybe help me here.
Yes.
How deep is this colonial knowledge and value and character? Is it within us, within the society, within?
It is deeply entrenched. It is deeply entrenched. And yes, and the thinking of the people in charge, like President Museveni, is that we need to pan-Africanize. For him, he calls it pan-Africanism. Perhaps he leaves it to us, the next generation, to unpack what pan-Africanism means, and maybe Semakade even puts it in a better way as decolonize. We need to decolonize. Well, the president, take for instance, will put in place, will follow, take for instance, the system and put in place magistrate courts and put in and appoint lawyers. I mean, appoint magistrates to the lowest, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and he will put the infrastructure there. But then calling that infrastructure to order and shaking them to actually do the role of a DPP. If people are in your custody, put them before courts, prosecute them. If they are found guilty, take them to prison. If they are found not guilty, release them to go and do other things. Maybe we might not understand the depth of that concept that these systems must work for the people until Semakade actually calls the DPP what words he called him. Now you
Careerist.
say, yes, what now the DPP will be called to light and we shall now engage in the conversation of how many people are actually in Luzira. There has been a 400% increment in the number of incarcerated people under this DPP. Why are people actually not getting prosecuted? Why don't we release people? But it takes a conversation of the DPP is this. And we are like,
Is it a question
let me maybe conclude on that line of thought that we need as a country, regardless of where you fall in the politics, in the religious, in whatever, to engage in the difficult conversation of how do these systems that are there actually transition to work for the ordinary Ugandan citizen, and look at the people as citizens who have an equal stake, who have an equal say in this conversation, and rather not subjects. Until we take that conversation, until we take that route, senior counsel will tell you that I am giving you experience by keeping you in this space of mind. The doctor will tell the intern, even when the intern is doing all the work in the hospital, the doctor will tell the intern that you do not qualify, you shouldn't qualify for any pay. You shouldn't qualify for any pay. You get, until, the thing about subjugation is that when the boss subjugates the father somehow finds comfort in subjugating the mother. And when the mother is subjugated, they do the same to the child. And the child does the same to the cat. You get? And that continues down to the lowest.
Thank you so much for that, Roy. It's rather a conversation we have to widen a little bit, but I want to talk about, to look into, is it the efficiency? Is it the kind of knowledge that people have? Is it the colonial mindset, like Senior Counsel Isaac Semakade has told us? What is the exact challenge? That and more in the next segment of the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. We head into a very short break and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. On this episode, we are discussing the Uganda Law Society and the couple of contradictions and conflicts and disagreements that are therein. And joining me on that conversation is Mr. Rugumayo Roy, Counsel Oprah Nkalubo, Counsel Brian Aruho, and Counsel Gilbert Musoke. And we're making sense of these unfoldings in that particular space, but also, by extension, looking at what these mean for the country, the region, the continent, and the world. Because in the end, we are citizens of the world where we have to be instrumental and credible participants in matters that are shaping today but also the future, since we are young people here who will live in that future, but also our grandchildren should be able to get in a world that is okay, that is comfortable, that is well governed, that is well managed, and these are the people. Colleagues, where we left off, you talked about the challenges in the law society and how it's happening. But Gilbert, starting with you in this second segment, I want you to take me to this level. I think 2 weeks ago we saw a letter circulating on X of an alleged expulsion, is it called expulsion, of the president of the Uganda Law Society, Senior Counsel Isaac Semakadde, and his vice president, Counsel Asimwe. And we saw Counsel Monavi and Counsel Ahimbisiwe allegedly being the framers of this particular status at the council. And since then, a lot has happened. Take us through this situation. How did it come about and where is it now?
Thank you for that particular question. I would like to restate the background of this particular executive order. It stems from the fact that this particular constitutions of the council and the members of UNSA all sprang from the laws that were existing in the British territory and not Uganda per se, because we didn't have those particular elements in our institution. But then, as law evolved, because law is not like cast in stone, as law evolved, people realized that these particular offices of Solicitor General and Attorney General are actually not doing any significant work in regards to like the running of activities of Uganda Law Society, because they allegedly, Mr. Semakadde says that the Attorney General has failed to address issues affecting the people, and he has been incompetent in his work, and the same thing goes to the Solicitor General. So we had the first development in regards to expulsion of these particular members come up in 2012 by the report by Sempebwa, and that's where Semakadde also came from and emphasized why these people should leave, and he was forced to come up with that particular executive order. But my reservation with that particular order, whereas it might have been passed with good intentions, but it was passed unlawfully because the Advocates Act and the US Act do not give the president power to remove any member of parliament, especially rather any member of the council or the society, unless it is provided for by the statute. And the only institution that is allowed to come up with like amendments to the statutes is the Parliament of Uganda, pursuant to Article 79 of the Constitution. So the rightful measures would be amending that particular provision before expelling these attorney generals, because that undermines the principle of natural justice, which says that let the other people be heard before you judge them. So attorney general and solicitor general are still legally in the offices of
are they performing their duties?
Whereas they might not be acknowledged, the law still acknowledges them as the rightful owners of those particular offices, and unless they have really amended that provision in the statute that provides for them to be included in the URS, then they will still remain standing.
Thank you so much. Brian, from the expulsion of the Attorney General and the Solicitor General, we now had an alleged expulsion of the President himself, Counsel Semakadde, Senior Counsel, and his Vice President. And as we are now, we know that the people that expelled the President are also on suspension. What is happening at the Law Society, and what does this look like?
Now, putting me in a tight corner. You know, we joked about this, I think 2 days back, law school, saying the person who was suspended is suspending the person that suspended him, which is quite very funny. But
actually, one expelled and the other suspended.
One expelled. It cuts across to, I think, what we study and what she said, studying and reality. In full respect, I don't want to say with due respect, but in full respect, when you read that document, it lacks a lot.
The former, the latter.
Not the current one that led to the suspension, suspension expulsion of Senior Council President Isaac Semakade, as well as Vice President Asimwe Anthony. It lacked a lot. To me, when I read that document, even before we had the discussions, I thought it was AI generated because it just wasn't legal. Someone thought about something, before, off legal, before we had the president in the Republic of Uganda who dream about something, then come and pass a decree. Now, have someone, I think, who used WhatsApp or something, or ChatGPT and say, generate for me this, ABCD, and then passed it. No signature, no stamp. I think which lacks the legal grounding. And if you say that let's follow integrity, that isn't the legal profession.
And I think that's why we need the decorum in order to protect the profession from such.
Yes, but then you do it. The beauty with the law is we study a course unit called equity and trusts. I think other universities call it equity just generally. One of the very key principles is he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. You don't just wake up one day. Now, I had the Right Honorable Counsel, Phillip Muliisa on NBS trying to defend that position. But there was nothing to defend. Because you've not done good and you want good to be done. On X Senior Council President Isaac Semakade made a very interesting tweet that when the cat is away, the mice tend to play. Sort of saying that, guys, I think it's a wake-up call that don't do bad and then expect society to come and then cleanse you. You do good, then good is done to you. When you say we are suspending you on grounds A, B, C, and D, it just didn't lack water. When you see the communication that came therein after the emergency digital meeting that happened on Saturday, as per the letter that came out by President Isaac Semakade, it responded to that 2-page document in 1 page, and that is not the issue. The issue is that this is a letter that showed you it had all ingredients. What stemmed from this? That there was this document that came out. What are we responding to? We are responding to the ingredients of that document. But then also, it had signatories to it. That is why, again, we have computers under law. That's why we have laws that govern the whole digital space in Uganda. You have electronic signatures. We have the Electronic Signatures Act. You have the signature of Senior Council President Isaac Semakade. You have the signature of Vice President, His Excellency Asimwe Anthony. You have the signature of the representative from Western region. You have the signature of the representative from the Northern region. You have the signature of the representative from the Eastern region. The only 2 people that did attend were Council Turiyamheba Geoffrey, the representative of Central, and Right Honorable General Secretary Phillip Muliisa. Missing, and they were suspended as ordered thereof, taking immediate effect. Now that is binding. So to break this whole conversation down, I don't want to, the politicians know this better. There is a whole thing in politics of someone using a person. I think, I would want to think that maybe Council Phillip Muliisa was lured into a trap that he didn't calculate prior. I think there was it would be a wrong thinking, but I think someone pushed him, because this is, in our history of unsuccessful coups, this has been very unsuccessful. Very unplanned and very unsuccessful, just to break down the conversation.
Wow. Oprah, when land people start acting, he says he thought it was AI generated. And that's in the legal fraternity, when you get to that level, you know how bad it is. Why would a lawyer advocate with good experience come up with unresearched, unthought of, non-legal, like he said, document that should influence an entire profession in the country? What was the rush?
Thank you so much. My comments on that particular document, if you read it, even just the first line, first of all, the English is wrong. Even as a young law student, I cannot write such a document. You know, it was really, it really showed a lack in really basic skills. Basic drafting skills, and that's why someone can say probably it was AI generated, no spacing, vocabulary is not well put together. But that aside, when we see such documents being put out, especially in a situation where they say they are expelling the president, of which there is no provision within the statutes, within the statute of the Uganda Law Society, and I think maybe they need to make amendments and put provisions that show how presidents, vice presidents, or even members of the council of that council can be, you know, removed, because those are not explicitly put out within the statute. So when you have a statute and such provisions are not well brought out, then people will just do as they please. And the challenge here is that these are just sentiments. It's how someone feels, and then they print these documents out, and they have no legal backing. Maybe if he had attached a case to it, or attached, even if it's not from a Ugandan jurisdiction, you know, but maybe, yes, something persuasive, maybe get us something from Europe, get us something from, you know, America, and at least put it there, and we see that, okay, this is something we can work with. But it shows us, one, the document was poorly drafted, but then second, it lacked any sort of backing. It seemed as though it was someone's opinion. So where people reach such extents, it is something that is not in good faith. As he said, if you come to equity, you must come with clean hands. That clearly showed an instance of bad faith. And what that means is not that they want to expel Isaac Sembakande because of any legal reason. If we are to look in the Constitution or even in other statutes, what's provided for in the law for removal of a president or vice president is either incompetence of office, things like inability to carry out work, mental disorders, and death. You know, but now when we look at this, when we look at such grounds, I don't believe that Isaac Sembakande has breached any one of those grounds. And even if you come and you give the defense of, oh, his language, etc., we have seen worse language, and people are still holding offices. So this is something that is happening in bad faith, and it's just to bring down the law fraternity, to bring down rule of law, because where you have one person and they keep tickling you, they keep tickling you, they keep tickling you, and you just want to get that away from you, so that you can now be free to do all the wrong things that are placed before you.
Someone said they are just jealous of the twins. What do you say about that?
I don't want to go into that, but my main point here is that it is clear that this is something out of bad faith, and it's a sort of thing that a person does when they have an interest in the matter, and this interest is not positive to help any society, be it the Law Society or the general public of Uganda. It is really just, when you see it at face value, it gives something of just a personal feud, and somebody just wants to sort of assert their power, yet they actually have no power.
Thank you so much. Roy, I want to take this from... this is tough. From the Law Society to all the other sectors of the country and the world, how we behave around power. If you have a secretary of an institution trying to overthrow a president and a vice president single-handedly through a document that our learning friends have told us was had poor English, was not based on any law. He didn't even have the power. And you know, he mentioned coups, and we've had a couple of them in this country. I think the most recent attempt should be the General Kazin trial some years back. I don't think we've had any other soon after that. But to talk to me about how people manage power and how people behave around power in this country at that level, a secretary, and he feels he can take over this thing. Is that how things are in this country?
You know, the ULS, the good thing about it is that in its naming, it starts with Uganda and ends with society. And so it is called to a higher responsibility, especially towards the Ugandan society. Even more especially in this new era where the Ugandan is looking for actual self-governance, is looking for liberation from Lugad's loot. Council Semakade calls it Lugad's loot. But in some shows here, I mentioned that we are a society that is a culmination of breakdown of various independent nations, Uganda, Toro, Musoke. These were independent nations which were broken down to bring the colonial enterprise called Uganda with the help of mercenaries. Captain Lugads, these were mercenaries, soldiers sent by companies, decorum, to grab territory for the success of those companies. And so they collapsed nations, they killed people, they overthrew independent governments which were kings and chiefs, forced some to sign agreements, and they called it a protectorate. You get? When they handed this enterprise of Abeko to the British government, the British decided to call it a protectorate. So what was set, including the Uganda Law Society, then was an effort to maintain that enterprise. And when people like Semakade say the Attorney General, which office is there to fight hard for the interests, especially legal interests of the state, they put that office in charge of all the lawyers and said this is the head of the bar. You get? When Semakade, who is a representation of the deep agitation of the general Ugandan public towards actual decolonization, says no, this cannot be here. The head of the bar is an actual elected representative of the lawyers. The head of the Taxi Drivers Association should be the actual elected representative of the taxi drivers. And that association, as established under the Ugandan Constitution, people's freedom to associate, you don't have the Minister for Transport as the head of the Taxi Drivers Association. Yes. You don't have the Minister of Education as the head of UNATU. You get? Why should it be different with the lawyers? You get? So the idea of democracy as envisaged by the NRM is grassroots and broad-based. That the lawyers in their thousands gathered at Munyonyo and voted for whoever they voted for whichever reasons they have. Okay? And you see, the Constitution also says that every other law that's not in line with the Constitution, that was even formed before the formulation of the Constitution, must be in line with the 1995 Constitution. Yes. Whatever law was there, even including the ULS law, which was formed in the 1950s, For as long as the 1995 constitution was put in place, whichever aspects of it are inconsistent with the 1995 constitution, they are null and void. Now, the articles that infringe on freedom of association, like one that places a government official over a corporate association, is null and void. And I think that's why whoever put a case in court over that, over the executive order 1, has since withdrawn it, knowing very well that even the courts will definitely side with the same academy. But the idea of where do people get this urge to overthrow legitimate elected government? It is absurd, and it must be scorned at every opportunity. Whoever is uncomfortable with the President Museveni government, they have an opportunity in 2026 to elect it out. Whoever is uncomfortable with the Isaac Semakade government has all the liberty to start mobilizing for what government they want after, is it 1 year or 2 years of the ULS, and get rid of him. But if they must do it mid-term or 2 months to the term, then let it be done within the precepts of the law, within what the laws say, especially the laws governing ULS itself. But we need now to call the ULS to a higher responsibility that they have over the nation. Remember, their name is Uganda, starts with Uganda and ends with society. When does the Uganda Law Society start speaking about the quality of our education? And I think the other day I saw Council Semakade speak about the expulsion of Makerere University students. Students came on to demonstrate over food and government allowances to cater for their food, and the Vice Chancellor expelled them. They went to Semakade, who made a statement that he's giving the university 3 working days to reinstate them, or else the Uganda Law Society is going to unveil 40 lawyers to follow that issue. And within the following day, they were reinstated. Now, that's Uganda Law Society standing in the place of the things that affect the Uganda. Now we need issues like water, like access to clean drinking water, access to electricity, access to credit, access to wealth. We need to see the Uganda Law Society taking a frontal position in advocacy, in pushing the state and all infrastructure of state and other institutions towards serving the Ugandan society and every other person. That's the kind of thinking. How do we decolonize? How do we democratize? How do we move ourselves to better standards as a country, as a people? The likes of Munabi are outliers. They must be ignored. They do not understand the Vision 2040 of Uganda, the Vision 2063 of Africa, Vision 2060 of the ULS. The Uganda Law Society must wake up and face the reality that Uganda and the world is now. Because if I needed a legal drafting now, I don't need Council Nkalubo. I can go to AI and get whatever pleadings I want. I can ask AI to tell me which cases give me such a result. And it will give me thousands of them from all over the world. And I will put them together and go argue for myself. You've seen the likes of Malema Birizi, right? They are not even licensed to do law, but he's one of the best lawyers around the country. Lawyers in quotes. So the lawyers must wake up to the reality of technology is making their profession irrelevant. The world where everyone is a lawyer, where everyone is an active citizen and can get whatever they want. If I need a contract in AI or with an IT company, I can get it from anywhere other than a law firm. Can the lawyers wake up to that reality? And I think the current Uganda Law Society is calling the lawyers themselves to that difficult conversation and calling Ugandans and Africans to these very, very difficult but important deliberations.
Thank you. Oprah, given that situation, what should the relationship look like between the Uganda Law Society, between Ugandan lawyers and government offices like the Attorney General, the Solicitor General, the Minister of Justice, and all these other offices? How should that relationship look like?
All right, I'll answer that real quick. So, at the end of the day, we just need functioning systems. We need systems whereby the Law Society is doing its role in promoting and ensuring rule of law and things in that regard.
The People's Shield.
Yes. And then we need now these institutions, whether it is DPP's office, whether it is Office of the President, we need those people to also be doing their work. Because if they don't do their work, then it will now be tasked on to the Law Society to now come and fight for the challenges that are being done by Office of the President. Because the police force is acting unethically, it will now come back to the Law Society. Oh, Law Society, can you raise your voice? Can you raise a stance on what the police is doing? So really the relationship that we should have among us is a relationship where we are all doing what we're supposed to be doing. And each sector is really just acting as a check and balance. Could you improve this? Could you help with this? Can we do this to change this? But now if we have institutions, every institution is poking into the other, because all of them are inefficient, then the country just goes into a state of quagmire. Because we had a situation now, Uganda Law Society was progressing. We're having people who are not supposed to be the heads of the bar out. You know, we're now discussing issues. But as we are discussing issues, now we have other people who are bringing in things that don't even concern the Law Society, they don't concern the common man. Now what are we arguing? We are arguing validity of documents. That is not what we're supposed to be arguing. We're supposed to be arguing what are the issues of Ugandans. And every office is supposed to be doing what they need to do for Ugandans. As simple as that.
Wow. Every office doing what they have to do for Ugandans. And speaking relationship, the other day I was passing via, is it called Acacia Avenue, and there are some two very posh buildings. One has K and K chambers and the other has Uganda Law Society, and someone was telling me the relationship here shouldn't be as close as it looks, but anyway, that's topic for another day. Look, Brian, you see, when you look around the region and indeed the continent, the question of power, just recently we have an impeached deputy president in the Republic of Kenya. We have a new president in Rwanda, just a couple of months in office. We have an election coming up in Uganda in a couple of months still. And when you look around, we have a candidate for the African Union Commission still in the region, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And when you go up in Sudan, there is anticipation for an election every other day. They say this year, next year, and hopefully it will happen. Of course, a terrible situation in Khartoum, and many other things. We seem not to be at peace with power, especially if you see a deputy president put out of office in just 2 years, and people cannot talk, people cannot sit down and agree. Why do we fail to agree as a people, as leaders? A president and a deputy president, a general and a lawyer, a minister and a president of a law society. Why can't we sit on the round table and agree on principle on how things should run?
Thank you. I think when we have it could be ideological differences, but then also conflict of interest. I think at that stage when people reach certain offices, I would want to think they get torn between what my sponsors funded my campaign for versus the reality. But then also who I have appointed or who my running mate was. Or maybe what is society looking at? Because when you look, to start with, the Uganda Law Society, none of them ran in partnership with the other. President Semakade ran on his idea. Vice President Asimo Anthony ran on his idea. The Right Honorable Phillip Muliisa ran on his idea. Everyone ran on his idea. At the end of the day, they all won in their different capacities. It's as simple as, let's now harmonize the different ideas, and then he said Uganda then society, work for the Ugandan society in general, inclusive of lawyers, inclusive of whoever comes along. We're supposed to be that mantle, that broom, that light, that torch to them, to their well-being. Yeah. So irrespective, and maybe let me just break this down. In the 2023 Guild campaign at Cavendish, which he nearly beat me for, we had a very bad race because it was torn between, we are tired of, we want a change in leadership. We want international students now to take heed, because the 14th Guild president was Ugandan. The 13th Guild president was Ugandan. The 12th Guild president was an international student. So we were torn between, how we even went past through. Whereas, yes, we know we had a good idea, but people were like, but you see, you're Ugandan, how about we get a shift? Now, I kid you not.
Serious issue you mentioned,
Yes.
and just for the record, I know of a university in this country where a Ugandan is not allowed to be guild president, guild speaker, or hold one of the major ministerial offices.
It's here in Uganda.
Yes.
Shall close it.
So
The
that
incoming
you can
president of
continue.
UNSA.
Very shocking. Very shocking when
that's
I
why
heard about that.
I honestly didn't know about that. But you see, now the problem was that the person I was competing with was not Ugandan. To make matters worse, was not even a law student. Now, that was a very heated race that even when we had the ideas, people wanted an international student. You know, we had this race 2 times, virtually, that we won, and then we went physical, that again we won. But in the spirit of harmony, good sportsmanship, I brought this gentleman on as vice president. I got 2 of his lead campaign agents. Even when they were totally against my name, my personality, I brought them in as ministers. And we've worked, we've handed over power. We just handed over power last week on Monday. The guild speakers handed over yesterday. Yesterday in the morning. We've worked, it's just a spirit of companionship, good sportsmanship, service delivery, pushing forward an agenda. I can tell you that I think the foreign policy of Cavendish University leadership wasn't as much vibrant as when we came in.
So you see, what you say is very interesting, but what happens at the top level? Because it is not just now. Like I mentioned, the deputy president and the president in Kenya, they disagreed just barely 2 years. When you go through history, Kwame Nkrumah and his team, barely 5 years, a lot of disagreement, and he was put out of power. Come to Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara, Blaise Compaoré, there was a murder involved.
It's just harmonization.
What happens? It is through history to where we are. Come to this country here, post-independence, Milton Obote, Kabaka Mutesa, a disagreement. They couldn't sit. Idi Amin, Milton Obote, talk about the military commission. There is a lot of disagreement always among the top leaders. What is the disease at that top level?
It's a disease of greed. It's just as simple as that, because there's nothing else that makes them disagree. I mean, when we were new in university and the whole leadership, I want to major on the Ugandan jurisdiction because it affects me because I'm Ugandan. These guys were in office. Then the president was His Excellency Yusuf Welunga. He was the Right Honorable Secretary General. They campaigned on completely different ideas, but they worked. They may have had their internal conflicts, but then they were handled internally. They settled. We never saw letters coming out, let's impeach. Or we never saw a letter coming from Roy calling delegates, guys, you know what? Let's see it. This guy, ABC. We never saw that.
When you listen to Counsel Elisha Ngoya, he's a very prominent Kenyan lawyer, and I'm glad you talked about following the impeachment process. He represented the deputy president at that. And later he was hosted on one of the radio stations, and he said, we can have these legal challenges and the political challenges, but the biggest problem we have is bad manners.
Yes.
And he says there is no solution to any of these if we still have bad manners in society. How do you respond to?
The bad manners is very simple. I think that's why I'm of the notion, personally, that before people contest for certain positions, you should have started somewhere. Because if you have no, you see people like Roy, people like you and everyone here, you've started, I mean, she has been in the debate society. You have been grilled at your very bottom. Your ego is massaged. So by the time you're brought on board, whether you've contested for presidency, Uganda Law Society, whether you've contested for presidency of Uganda, whether you've been appointed somewhere, there is that attachment you have to the good morals that were set then. But then also it brings you to the saying that when we were growing, they used to tell us in English that a person who has not, a child who has not tasted food outside their home thinks his mother is the best cook. So for you, you think you're the best leader, you think your ideas are imposing. You've forgotten the fact that this office you're holding was held by several others before you. You found it there, you will die, it will stay there. Other people will hold it. But the name you build matters a lot. You will take years building a brand, building your thing. I'm Aruho Brian, people have known you. The moment that one video leaks, my name goes. All those years of reputation building are trashed in a second. The moment I come out and say, let's impeach this person, people will start digging, why do you want to impeach him? The moment you give people the option of questioning your works, questioning your name, questioning your reputation, it's as good as dead. Do you think then, 15 years later, 20 years later, the same people will recommend you for a position? No. Do you think they will be the same people to campaign for you? No. Do you think they will be the same people giving opportunities to your children? No. People will even fear naming children Aruho because they think it's a name of just bad luck.
Thank you for that. Musoke, the question of leadership, and he talked about grooming and role modeling and inspiring leadership. And Mwalimu Julius Nyerere is famously known for having said that the problem of Africa is wholly and squarely a problem of leadership. Why are we failing at leadership, and what can we do? Just briefly.
Thank you. I just add on his major point and the conflict of interest. You find that when people come into these particular leadership positions, they forget their mandate and front their personal interests. You find that, let me take an example of like senior counsel Semakade. You find that whereas the Uganda Law Society has like its obligations, its duties, and its aspirations and values as a society, you find that when he comes into leadership, he prefers to do his things in his way without like
Counsel, you just talked about evolution. When do we evolve and when do we not?
We evolve where the current laws do not work with the current status quo of how things are in the moment. Because
and we are talking about the 1902 Order of Council.
We are talking, the order in council is the one that brought in all these laws, the common law principles.
So is it not worthy that we shift from that and get to where society is? A society that has artificial intelligence, a society that is talking about globalization, a society where you can buy something from China and it's delivered in Kampala.
Yes,
is it not worthy of an evolution?
And I will take you back to what Professor Pro Lumumba told us last time, that some things do not just happen in the night, and that's why there is some progress. You'll need to adapt to change, but it won't come in the night as the way the new leadership would want.
122 years later?
I'm saying that the law as it was by then is not the same as it is now, and the way it is now it might not be the way people want, but the thing is, we are getting there, but it's not going to happen in a night.
Thank you so much, Gilbert Musoke, for that, and thank you so much for the views. Colleagues, our time is very much fast spent. I think we have less than 5 minutes to be out of here, but I won't let you go without giving me a final word on this particular topic, because I'm so much interested in the views you carry about this particular subject. And very briefly, in less than a minute, I want to pick from each of you. I should start with you, Brian. What is your final comment about this whole situation?
Thank you. My final comment is, and in a nutshell, we should respect the offices we run for, get to know them prior, and once elected in those offices, respect each and every shareholder, respect the name of the institution, respect the statutes that govern those institutions, and respect our own brand that we've tried to build over the years.
Thank you so much. Gilbert.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the panelists. My last words would be, we have to respect the law as it is. Whether it works for us or not, the law will still remain the grand norm of the country, and there are avenues for amending what we do not agree on, and we should follow the guidelines provided in that particular law.
Just briefly, you are very comfortable with references in your law to the House of Lords and Reginald Wilmington versus DPP. That is so comfortable for you.
Well, those particular laws establish the principles that are still working, because like you've said, the Wilmington case established a principle that is now still working in the criminal justice system, so we should follow the law.
Thank you so much. Luke Rugumayo, talk to me.
Well, I think the issue of interests versus identity comes hugely in the conversation of power politics and power dynamics across the continent. Take, for instance, where the disagreement between Obote and Mutesa, his president, disagreements on interests or identities of a good Muganda is a dead one, or where the interests of various aspects in Congo, identity versus interest, in Somalia, in Kenya itself, someone became a DP running mate simply because they were bringing a region, identity versus interest. And when that region is brought on board and the election is won, the politics of the day have won. But
and indeed, one of the things they accuse him in the impeachment is being consistently talking about the Murima. And
so interest versus identity. And I think as Africans, we need to go back to interests. Take, for instance, Isaac Semakade. It has nothing to do with his identity. He is a Semakade. The other one is Chiriowa Chiwanuka. So it's basically interests. And the interest here is the independence of the Uganda Law Society. Interests of the society growing. And I'll conclude with the words of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere to us. Progress should not be the construction of a hotel. And we say there was no big building here, now we have, so progress, there you are. Or roads, there was no road, now we have a road. Progress should be the incremental improvement of our people.
Thank you so much. Did that stem from the 2 buildings I talked about? Thank you so much. Oprah, last word on this show.
All right. So the Uganda that we have today, there is a great need to be radical. We need to be radical, because if we do not, then we're going to have challenges in our future. Our future lies in our hands. And when we see policies not working, when we see the rule of law is not working, issues of separation of power, issues of the education system, leadership, all these need to be handled with a great urge and with great sensitivity. So it's important for us as Ugandans, it's also important for the Law Society to come together and handle the issues that affect Ugandans in a radical manner so that we can have change for the betterment of our country.
Radicalism is not extremism.
Radical Oprah Nkalubo.
Radical, not extreme.
Yes.
Oprah Nkalubo, thank you so much for those views and for making time for the Youth Roundtable today. Rugumayo, Roy, thank you so much for your views and for the time you spared for the conversation today. Aruho, Brian, thank you so much for your views and for making time for the conversation. And Gilbert Musoke, thank you so much for making time for the conversation. And indeed, the amazing views you share with us. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for joining the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. Special thanks to the technical team for making sure we deliver this work on time and in good quality, and special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance for making sure we gather here and do this to put a contribution to the growth and progress of this country, because in the end, it is our motherland and we have to make sure we build it for the future. I am Phillip Muliisa and I shall see you next time.